Hare Krishna. Nice to see you guys. We're going to have some more fun with Ahankara today. Okay. So first I'm going to review from last week what we talked about. Then I'm going to talk about one particular characteristic I talked about last week, about sensitivity. I said Ahankara is insensitive, but also Ahankara is also sensitive, so I'm going to explain both. And then I'm going to talk about difficult people again, right? We just analyzed one, the whiner. So we're going to analyze a few more difficult people, and then I'll open it up for questions. Okay? So review from last week. So Ahankara is our sense of identity. Remember all the different identities I was showing last week? You can, whatever you identify your mind with or your body with, there's thousands of things, right? But basically the sentences are, with Ahankara, always like I, me, mine, my, that's Ahankara. That's how you can tell when someone's Ahankara is at work, right? When they're talking like that. Our sense of identity is related to how we perceive our body and mind, how we perceive it. Okay? So Ahankara is the agent of action. That was the other point, right? So once you say, I am a fill in the blank, I'm a devotee, then you want to come to Vrindavan. That's the action, right? Or I am a mother, then you want to go take care of your kid in some way. Or whatever it is you think you are, that's what then you want to act on that. Okay? And the secret to understanding Ahankara was what I was showing with this balancing thing, right? So Ahankara is always pushing us, every person, to act in a way to maintain our position. Whatever we think our position is, related to our body or our mind, our position of importance in that thing, specific thing. For example, I don't have any kids, I'm not a mother. So if I meet another mother, I'm not going to try to be a better mother than her. My Ahankara is not mother. You know what I mean? But if there's a mother who has kids and she's very identified her whole life as being mother and her children, then she's going to be very threatened by another mother who she perceives might be a better mother. So she's going to do whatever she can to maintain her position of importance, relevance, uniqueness, better mother. But it's interesting to see how it plays out, how she might do that. It might not be so obvious, but that's what she's doing, or any of us are doing when our Ahankara gets triggered by somebody who's getting a little too close to how we see ourselves. Okay? So these are the characteristics of Ahankara that we talked about. I just made a little sheet. I sent it to you guys earlier. So proud, lacks awareness, blames others. Interesting, Ahankara hates and loves. Doesn't only hate. So it hates the people that threaten, or the things that threaten it. And it loves the people and things that make it feel in its rightful position of being the best, number one, superior. It's competitive. Ahankara makes us criticize others, right? To bring them down, and praise ourselves to bring us up, so we feel we're in our rightful position of number one. It rationalizes. So that's another thing that it does, and it uses buddhi for that, but we're not there to buddhi yet, so I'm just talking the Ahankara point of it. So Ahankara always has to have a reason why what we did is right. What I did is right. It's never wrong, ever. And the rationalizations go so extreme. Even somebody who's done something obviously wrong, they're in jail. They're in prison for it. They'll have a very good reason why that's not wrong. They're not wrong. They even have now on YouTube these videos of sociopaths. People who've killed people, who've done horrible things, and their description is kind of chilling. Because they don't have any remorse. They have no regret, no remorse, and they describe it very cold. Oh, of course, that's what it is. And it's oh my God, So that's an extreme case of Ahankara, but everybody's doing it. Ahankara blocks us from seeing how we possibly could be wrong. It's painful to hear it. It's painful to hear, to have that pointed out. And then you're like, why don't you just tell me all the things I did that are great? Why do you have to tell me what I did was wrong? And one thing, I did 100 good things. Why can't you notice those, It makes us think we're special and unique, and this insensitive characteristic. That's what I'm going to go into more in a minute. So we're insensitive to others, basically, because we're so focused on getting what we need to feel superior and to feel, the best, and to feel, or at least better than whoever it is that's around us that's triggering us, Okay, so we did one person. Remember the whiner? We analyzed the whiner, right? So feels that nothing's ever right, complains a lot, doesn't come up with solutions, right? So they're complaining, I don't like this, I don't like that, but they have no idea on how to make it better. They're kind of like a victim. They want you to make it better, right? They blame other people for their own problems, and then they're impatient for change. They're unhappy, but they're like, fix it now, make it better now. But they take little action to change things, and they basically are a victim, That's a nutshell of the whiner. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about sensitivity. So sensitivity actually can be a very good quality, and it can be a very bad quality, depending on how it plays out in your ahankara. And it's not that you're only just one way sensitive. We both have both types of sensitivity, you know? So you just have to see, you have to watch your ahankara if you're interested in that, and see what type of sensitivity is flaring up right now, okay? So there's two types, soft-hearted sattva and freaking out fragile, okay? So the soft-hearted sattva makes us be very sensitive to other people's feelings, not in a negative way, like, oh, that might hurt that person if I didn't invite them or something like that, you know? But we're also sensitive to our own feelings, but not in a selfish way, you know? In a way like, oh, I'm going to validate how I feel too, it's important, and I'm going to, because I do that, I can see how other people would feel, you know, if I did that same thing to them, you know? So it goes kind of both ways, being very soft with our feelings. Then the freaking out fragile is people who have a very, like a rajasic or tamasic ahankara. It causes us to be very insensitive to other people's feelings, but overly sensitive to our own, right? And we've all had times like that, right? When it's like we're freaking out about something, but we're not realizing how we've affected everybody else, you know? So that's the freaking out fragile. And you see the cat. I can't help it, I have to keep putting the cats. They're such good examples. Have you seen a cat freak out like that before? It's like, you know, and sometimes it freaks out just from something very simple. It'll jump in the air and do a backflip or something. Very sensitive, you know, it's very sensitive. Okay, so let's talk about the soft-hearted sattvic type of sensitivity first, right? So if your ahankara is in the mode of like the soft-hearted sattva, then you're going to be very, very sensitive to other people's feelings, especially how our behavior affects them. It's one thing to be sensitive to someone's feelings, like maybe a cognitive empathy, like you notice their feelings. Oh, this person's feeling sad today, or this person's feeling a little angry or upset. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the compassion empathy, where you can kind of feel for them. It's a little deeper type of empathy. You can kind of feel for them, especially how what you're saying or what you're doing or what you're not saying or what you're not doing might affect that person. That's when you have a very soft heart for someone, you know? That's a sign of empathy, this compassion empathy, and that's a good quality. We like it when somebody notices us, right, and is concerned about, you know, making sure that we're comfortable, you know, that we're not being hurt by something they've said or they've done, right? So that's the soft-hearted type of sensitivity for the ahankara. So here are some characteristics, specific ones for the soft-hearted sattva. They're humble. They don't believe that she doesn't believe that she's better than others, right? And actually, there's such a fascinating thing about ahankara. Almost everybody will be like, I have these qualities. It's like, okay. That's the thing, is that, like, if I did a survey, we'd all be like, of course I'm open-minded. I'm living in India, aren't I? You know, and I'm humble, and I'm introspective. I'm very introspective, you know. So that's why it's so hard to work with ahankara. Because when the rubber hits the road and you get in the hot seat with the therapist who gets out the hammer, it's shocking what the therapist will say. It's like, I didn't see it like that. Why are you being so harsh? It's like, because your ahankara is blocking you from seeing yourself, you know. So the other one is open-minded, receptive to new ideas, right? And the other one is introspective, examines your own thoughts and your own feelings instead of analyzing others. So there's one thing you can be, I'm introspective. I analyzed why this person did that to me. No, that's not really what I'm talking about. Introspective in the sattvic mode is analyzing yourself. What did you do to throw the firecracker to start the thing? You know? And that's the part that's always kind of missing in the story. It's like, I analyzed her. She's very sensitive. She's got that fragile ahankara. It's like, okay, you know. But is there anything you possibly could have done? No. That's just how she is. I was having a great day. That's how she is. Okay. You know. So it's very, very, ahankara is just the most difficult thing to work with. There's really no way around it, you know. When you finally have to see it, it's usually from a painful situation. When some clash happens in your life, and it's so painful that you're finally like, wow, how could this be? And maybe some compassionate person will tell you the truth. Here's why. And maybe you'll listen, you know. But most of the time, that's not how it goes. And then you have some story in your head that's not really true. It's your kind of distorted perception of yourself, you know. And you'll carry it for the rest of your life. And that's why we have relationship clashes. Because we don't see ourselves clearly, you know. And we have certain expectations about how things should be, you know. So this introspection is a very important part, but I think we use that word a lot. And it's important to think, what does it really mean? Not analyzing the other, analyzing yourself and your part. And it's so subtle. I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was this week in class, Babaji said, one of the things we should do is not make other people jealous. Right? And it's like, what? How could I make other people jealous? Well, if you don't see yourself clearly, you're not going to know how you make other people jealous. But there's many ways to make other people jealous without even trying. So that's what I'm saying. If you're introspecting, you're like, okay, this person's Ahankara is like this. This is how they see themselves. And I'm like this. Is that going to threaten them? Yes, probably. Probably going to threaten them. I'm not saying you live your whole life like, not expressing yourself, but I'm just saying there's so many ways that you can upset others without realizing it. And until you kind of get your mind into a state of sattva and ground yourself down and stay peaceful and calm, you can't really see yourself, really. And then so of course you can't see how you affect others. So that's why I kept harping on the sattva-sizing your senses, because the more sattvic you get, the more calm you get, the more you can see probably the person is going to, you can predict how the person's going to react if you can read their Ahankara. You can predict they're going to probably act like that, so I'm probably not going to say that. If you can stay calm. So the introspection is really, really important. Okay. So this got a little messed up on the slide, sorry. So soft-hearted sattva, in terms of relationships, how do they look? They'll create harmonious relationships because they're considerate, they're compassionate, they're understanding, they're inclusive. They don't leave you out. They're not only thinking about themselves and their tasks they have to do or something like that. They're thinking about the whole group. This chair has squeak to it, excuse me. I'm like, sounds like my back. Okay, so some more characteristics of soft-hearted sattva. So insightful is another one, right? So it shows that insightful means you have a clear understanding that's original. Oftentimes when I'm running a group or when I'm doing individual therapy, I'll think, okay, I've just made the best explanation of something. I'll be like, so what did you get out of this? And it's not even close to anything I said. So your insight is something maybe that you just had on your own, but it's not related to what I was saying and what I was trying to get across, So that's good, but I'm saying insight related to the topic, to the point that's trying to be expressed to you. That's a good insight, related to therapy, in therapeutic terms. It's like, okay, here's the point, and how does that relate to me? And then the insight would be, I'm like this, not, how people in the world are, or some other thing that doesn't even relate to the point, So you need to have your mind in sattva to even catch it, to catch the subtleties of what's being said, Another characteristic of soft-hearted sattva is remorseful, that you feel guilty. Not that you're going to beat yourself up and, hate on yourself and say, I'm a horrible person. It's not that, but guilty, like, ooh, I didn't mean to hurt that person. I feel bad about that. You feel regretful. And then you do something with it. You don't just sit on it, You do something with it. What do? You take accountability. You contact that person and say, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. I wasn't thinking because I was triggered myself. So that's this third one, being accountable for your own feelings and your own behavior. Obviously, if someone is hurt, you can't be like, well, that's just their issue. They need to manage their own issue. They need to manage their own mind. They're triggered. That's their karma. Karma's a bitch. No. You're in a relationship with them and you did something to hurt them. Or maybe you're not in a relation. Maybe they're just in the community. You did something to hurt them. So you have to, once you realize it, you have to say, okay, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't realize it. I was triggered with my own thing. Or I was in my own head. Or I wasn't even triggered, but I didn't even notice what I was doing. So this accountability, Or maybe you don't realize it and the person approaches you. And then you listen to them and say, okay, tell me more. What did I do? How did I hurt you? I'm sorry for that. Right? So you have to kind of take responsibility for one's actions. That's another part of this soft-hearted sattva. It's extremely difficult to do these things. I'm making it seem cute with the cartoons and all that. This is like some of the hardest things to do. The hardest things to do, because that means your Ahankara has to be humble, right? You have to be open, and that means you don't have some samskara being triggered by that person or that situation. Some samskara of an abusive mother, of an abusive father, of a father who's not paying attention to and distant, of a mother who's too overbearing. I mean, we all have some scars from childhood that are not perfect, So we've created these defense mechanisms as a response to that. And now it's like, yay, soft-hearted sattva. It's not that so simple, It can take years to really get it down on how to calm your samskaras down, calm your Ahankara down, truly listen to the other person and actually feel something for them, But the first step is doing it for yourself. Calming your mind down, feeling for yourself, wow, I had that was a hard thing that happened in my childhood, That was a hard thing. and being compassionate to yourself, to your inner child first. And then you can have more room to hear the other person when they have their thing, that they want to share. Okay? There's the cat again, freaking out fragile. So now let's switch gears to the opposite end of the spectrum. So if a person is sensitive to their own feelings, especially how others' words and behaviors affect themselves, right? This is a sign of an overly sensitive Ahankara. Ahankara is sensitive as it is, but it can go one direction or the other. But in general, this is the one that most people tend towards. So here are some characteristics. One is, it's a highly distorted self-view, okay? If you ask, they're going to say that they're sattvic. They're not going to tell you they're perfect, but they think they are. And you can tell by how they react when you poke a hole, when you just poke a little hole into something that triggers them, They think they're very smart. They're always right. Have you had a conversation with somebody and they're always right? They will never say, you're right, I got it, you're right. Or they'll never ask for advice. They'll always tell you how you're wrong, basically, whatever point you make. They also have this interesting characteristic of being an innocent victim as well. Or they always are trying to be the good guy or the good girl. They want to be seen as good, like eternally good. I didn't do anything wrong, and this person did this thing to me. And how could they? I was just in my happy sattvic place. So this is a problem. This is what makes, because you want to preserve that, you want to preserve that view of yourself, you're on high alert, this type of person, not person, but when you're in this mode. You're in high alert, right? So you're very sensitive to any negative material, we'll call it, approaching you. It could be a person walking by, It could be some words, it could be a situation, it could be whatever it is that you're trying to preserve that perfect identity of yourself. And we have many different identities, right? It could be a yoga teacher, it could be a psychologist, it could be a devotee, it could be a student, it could be a daughter, son, whatever it is. But whatever that identity is that you need to have be perfect, then you're on high alert for anything that could scratch. Just make a little scratch and show 1% imperfection, right? Because it will threaten your self-view, and you're doing everything you can to hold that up of how you want to be seen and how you think of yourself, right? So because they're trying to do that, they do this thing called love bombing, right? So they will shower other people, not other people, but the person who they want to see them like that, with very intense attention and love and praise. And so they make you feel like, yes, you are awesome. You are the way that you are perfect, and you are sattvic, and you are always right, and you are so empathetic, and you're innocent, and you're a victim. And once the person, has been hooked, then this person feels secure. And they're like, okay, good. Now you're my person, and you are my person. Because basically I brainwashed you, but it's not, that's not obvious actually. When we do this, when some people do this, they're not consciously being like, okay, now I'm going to love bomb. That's not what they're doing. It's just their defense mechanism. It's their unconscious samskaras making them act in this way, So that's what they do. And then they feel, okay, I've got that one person or two or three, whoever they've got as their people who see them in the way they want to be seen, in the way they see themselves, okay? So then here's what happens next, because it looks pretty good so far, right? There's no freaking out. Right? It's all rainbows and unicorns so far, right? So that's why it's like, why are you calling them freaking out fragile? I mean, they're doing a few things, but there's nothing I've seen with freaking out, right? The first three characteristics. So it's so far so good until one slight little criticism, just a pinch. And then you'll see this very fragile ego or Ahankara. It just freaks out. It freaks out. Because they can't let anything painful ever enter their very profoundly fragile heart. So this is coming from a childhood trauma, and that's why I'm kind of making it funny, but actually when you see it in real life, it's very sad. Because this person has had some sort of thing happen in their childhood where they can't be accepted for who they are and how they are, They had some dynamic happen with the parents that made them not accept themselves, especially their feelings. So they have to project kind of this image of being perfect and all that other stuff that's not good about themselves, which is normal that we all have. They push it down and they cover it, and so they just want to be seen as perfect. So when you poke or scratch or say one small thing, it's very, very difficult for them to take that. It's difficult for any of us to be criticized, but this particular dynamic is why I'm calling it freaking out fragile. So here's what happens. So they have glasses on, usually rose-colored, right? About themselves, looking at themselves, being like, wow. But then what happens is when you just say one thing, it cracks the glasses. It cracks their glasses, and then they see something they don't want to see about themselves that makes them feel, oops, did the thing go off? No. Okay. That makes them feel so ashamed about themselves, you know, and so this is the thing they've been trying to hide. This is what they've been trying to hide all along. It makes them feel so hateful about themselves, so ashamed, you know, that what are they going to do? They're not going to just sit there and cry. They've made a whole personality, unconsciously, a whole defense mechanism around not feeling that and not seeing that. They've hidden it in the basement, in the corner, you know, and now you've poked it, and it's coming out, you know. So the one thing they do is they try to intellectualize, because they don't want to feel a damn thing, you know. So they'll be like, actually, and they'll start analyzing something, like way off topic, you know. And I always say, okay, I'm asking about your feelings, not what you think. That's why I'm saying it. Come on back here, let's get into your heart, you know. And so they'll analyze someone else. They'll start gossiping, you know, so-and-so's like that and so-and-so's like that. I'm like, but we're talking about you, your feelings, your heart. That's important, that's why we're here, you know, but it's too uncomfortable to go to that place, you know, why? Because their mother never validated that for them, their feelings. But I promise you, they'll tell me the mother did. Nobody will be like, no, my mother didn't validate me. Everybody will say, yeah, my mother was there for me in some way, when I really get down to it, you know. But anyway, so instead of feeling their own very crappy, painful feelings, they'll intellectualize, and they're going to tell you, they're going to analyze someone else. They might even analyze themselves, but they won't feel it. You will not see a feeling. It's, you know, their heart will not crack open, and they won't start crying, or they won't express anger, they won't express fear, they won't express any of that stuff. So then what they do is they deny. First they intellectualize, they'll try that, then they deny. This is not really in any particular order, but these are the three common things that happens when you crack into, in other words, a criticism comes to someone who's trying to be seen as perfect. So then they deny they have a problem. They say, everything's fine. I'm so happy. Yeah.
I have a good joke.
Can you wait till the end?
Have you heard of the Nile? Yes, it's a river in Egypt.
Okay. This is what I mean by intellectualizing. You see, he's probably actually feeling a feeling, but it's uncomfortable. So you have to make a joke and distract, because this isn't an easy topic, you know? So that's actually what happens all the time in therapy. I'm talking about a serious thing, and people are going, I'm seeing your guys' faces. Nobody's like really smiling anymore. Everyone's like, oh, this is heavy. So you see what Jiaoji did? He made a joke. He tried to keep the whole thing light. Why? To avoid feeling the feelings. That's exactly what I'm good. Exactly. Exactly. So we're in denial. We intellectualize, right? Everything's fine. Remember one of the classes before I taught about toxic positivity? Remember that one? This is what that is. It's just complete denial. You know, and you're not fine. You know, maybe something's not fine with you. Most often something's not fine, but you want to be like, no, I'm good. Everything's fine. You know, or, right? So this is a difficult one, you know, because how do you tell people you're not fine? They're like, why are you telling me how you know about my mind? It's like, okay, you know, so they have to come to it themselves. And usually what happens is they don't come to it until it builds up, and what do? They do an attack. You see the hand like throwing the food or the pie or something in the person's face. So it builds up, and then they snap. And what they do is because they don't want to feel their painful feelings, they're not consciously saying, I'm going to attack someone. It just comes out like that. And it gets projected, or what we call deflected, on somebody else. And it's an explosion on somebody else, you know? And sometimes you're just the unsuspecting victim, you know? You don't even know. It's not maybe the person who even triggered them. It just comes out like that, you know? And they attack them with anger or blame or rage. And it could be the very person who was their favorite person before, who everything was good and you felt really close, and that's your special person because, right? And then you're there and you're like, you said that one thing, and they're like, wait a minute, they cracked me, you know? They got underneath and they saw my dirty side or my shameful side, whatever it is, you know? They saw what I didn't want anybody to ever see, what I thought I had preserved so carefully for nobody to ever see. And when that happens, that's when the attack comes. Okay? So these are the freaking out fragile, yeah.
So that means the person is aware when you say he feels ashamed that they saw that. But before I got the impression that they're totally blind to that.
Yeah, they're blind to it. I'm saying my analysis, like if you're a psychologist and you're analyzing, you can see it. You can see what the feeling is. But they're not going to say they feel ashamed. They're going to say, this asshole, can you believe what she or he did?
So they're not really aware that
Their feelings, yeah.
they're
not aware of what they're trying to
feel
hide.
like
They're
that.
not aware of their feelings. All they can literally see is the other person who did X, Y, or
Yeah.
Z.
And
That's it.
they don't know that they are trying to hide a
No,
specific.
no.
Yeah,
And when you tell them, they just intellectualize it. I've had some clients like that for years. It's the same conversation every week, and they're just intellectualizing. They're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I'm like, so tell me what you understand. They'll say it back, and I'm like, good. And then next week, they're mad at their husband again, and it's the same story. Their husband's a demon. They're a perfect angel, and their husband's a demon. And what did the husband do? I'm like, all right, bring the husband into therapy. And they drag the husband in, and he's usually like the codependent type, and he's like, I'm sorry, what did I do wrong? And it's like, and I'm like, can you look at your side? What did you do? What's your part of this, But they're not aware. And even when you tell them, even when you say, why don't you research this and this? They'll research and be like, that doesn't really relate to me. It's like, okay. So it's very hard to see it. That's why I'm presenting it like so slowly. I'm slowing down just on the sensitivity, even one characteristic, because this is like one of the trickiest things to see yourself, to see that. Okay, so freaking out fragile, here's the summary of characteristics. Highly distorted self-view. They're on high alert to make sure but they wouldn't say it. I wouldn't be like, you're on high alert so nobody sees behind what you're trying to cover. They wouldn't ever see it that way. They do this love bombing, which they wouldn't call it that either. They would just say, I have a close friend. I have people who are my people or something. To keep them close. Why? To preserve their image of themselves, of how they want you to see them. And it's hard to do it unless you have a few people, close people, to keep you bolstered up and as being seen in the way that you want. You can't really relax, if you're trying to do this. Then the intellectual. So if you kind of call them out on something, I guess you could say, or you criticize them, or they're triggered, that's when these three things happen. They intellectualize, they deny, and they attack. And it doesn't even have to be call them out. Literally, if you just start being authentic in your feelings, in your heart, that's triggering. Right, Daoji? That's what happened. We were just talking about feelings. I didn't do anything specific about to your Ahankara, who you are versus who I am or something, right? All I did was start hovering around some painful feelings. Did you see what happened? You had to make a joke. That's how sensitive the Ahankara is. And it happens all the time. Watch when you're having a conversation with someone. If you show up authentically and you start sharing your feelings about something, see if they can hold the space. Most often not. It's very difficult for people to do it. Especially if you are not in touch with your feelings. It's going to be a very big trigger for you if someone's in touch with theirs. That's a criticism in itself, because it means they're in touch with their feelings and you're not. So this is very triggering when someone's a deep person, deep feelings-wise, and you're not. Okay? So, let's analyze our next difficult people. That was a little sidetrack on sensitivity, but what I want to do today is, here's the summary sheet, so if anybody wants to take a picture, I put all on one. So when we look at the next set of these difficult people, you can look just at the normal Ahankara characteristics, or you can also add in if you're seeing any freaking out fragile in these difficult people. So normal Ahankara and freaking out fragile. We're going to add another twist in here and see what you see. Okay? Does anybody need me to keep it up a little longer to capture that? The freaking out fragile, those characteristics, highly sensitive, distorted self-view, on high alert at all times, to preserve their image, They do this love bombing, intellectualizing, denial, and attacking. And I don't have the benefit of seeing anybody on Zoom, so I can't tell if you're watching Zoom, if anybody has their hand up or anybody needs anything. You'll just let me know? Or?
Yeah, good question.
Okay.
So the soft part of Sattva can very easily look, well, you could think you're in that, but you could just be a codependent. How would you differentiate the two between the codependent and the soft part of
Sattva? Let's talk about it at the end. Sorry, I was just meaning, did anybody need this to take a picture of the screen? I'll do questions at the end, okay, Alex?
Sure.
Okay, I recognize your voice even though I can't see you. But okay, so I will do these 6 difficult types and then we'll analyze. Okay, so just look for characteristics now. All right? Everybody got the picture? Or the characteristics? Okay. If you're on Jiva announcements and Jiva Vrindavan WhatsApp, I also put a snapshot of the Ahankara characteristics there. So if it's too hard to write it down, you can look there. Okay? Here we go. Difficult type number 2. Difficult person type number 2. The know-it-all. Arrogant. Shares their opinion on every single issue, and they know they're right. You know that type? They think they know more than everyone else. They feel that they're never wrong. And they act defensive if they get challenged. They also know what you should be doing. Not only do they know everything, including what you should be doing. So you're like, achoo! And they're like, oh, I know the best medicine for that. It's like, I didn't ask you, you know? Right? They know what you should be doing as well, and they're so happy to tell you about that. And they feel superior to others, obviously, but just wrote it out there. And they like others to feel inferior on top of it. Not only do they feel superior, but it feels good to them to see somebody feeling below them, to see somebody feeling inferior. Okay? The know-it-all. So now, let's see if I can get back a slide. The know-it-all. So what do you guys think in terms of characteristics of the know-it-all? Proud, lacks awareness, blames. What do you see there? Anybody want to share? I'm going to put it back on the know-it-all, okay? Because that's the one you didn't get to see for very long. What characteristics of Ahankara or of the fragile, freaking out type?
He must be also competitive.
Okay. You want to use the mic so everyone can hear?
Yeah, he must be competitive because if he's always right and then anybody challenges him, then he's competing to be right.
Yeah, very good. Yep, competitive. What else? Go ahead, Bard, and then there's one back behind you.
Distorted sense of self.
Okay,
perhaps.
very good. So what makes him, what do you see here that makes him have a distorted sense of self, specifically?
Well, arrogance always kind of is sort of a red flag about, sense of self.
Okay.
Perhaps, maybe.
Okay, so arrogance. One behind. Do you want to? Yep. Okay, there's a mic there.
Probably they criticize others in order to feel superior.
Okay, and criticizes others in order to feel superior. Where's that? Okay, there. The Ahankara is there. And then here?
Feels superior to others.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good.
And likes others to feel inferior.
Yep. Vilas?
It's quite insensitive to share opinions on every issue and share advice without being asked.
It's insensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because it can be uncomfortable for the Ahankara of the other person. Right?
Right. Because what's the other? So tell me the Ahankara of the other person. If you're sitting there and someone's sharing their opinion on every point, what is the Ahankara of the other person? What's the reaction, would you say?
That the other person then feels threatened or inferior and has to top up, right? So and then it becomes a spiral, no? That everyone has to top up, and then the arguments become more and more heated, and this dynamic I've experienced.
Yes. Good, Vilas. Very good. That's a good one. Who else? I think someone wanted to, Ishwara?
I think the praises themselves, and in the case of know-it-all people, like it's really like what they need to feel superior to others or make them others feel inferior. So all the time.
Pump up, you're down, right? Good, very good. You got it. Kamala?
He knows what others should be do and tell to them left and right.
Knows what others should be doing and tells them. And so how does that relate to any thing here?
Yeah, on feeling superior.
Feeling superior. Okay. Here? What are you talking about? So are you talking about something from here or the other slide?
No, from here.
Okay, which one?
Knowing that others should be doing.
Okay, and telling them, yeah.
Telling them. And I think because the Ahankara is impelling, because if you want to feel better than others, you have to tell to others what to do.
Okay, so the characteristic?
Characteristic is feeling special and unique.
Okay. So I feel so special and unique that I know better than you and I can tell you what to do. Okay, good. Anyone else?
Yes, can I say something?
Yes, Purushottam, please.
I think it is rationalizing because he thinks he knows more than everybody else, and also he also wants to tell others what they should be doing it. So he's trying to rationalize himself, how he's superior, how he knows all of these things, he has all the answers for it.
That's interesting. So you think, imagine if we asked the know-it-all, why are you telling, why do you just keep telling people what to do? And he'd be like, his rationalization would be because I know better than them, something like that.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, that's true. He'd be like, what's wrong with it? I know better than them. He could say like, I'm their mother, I'm their father, I'm their senior, or I've been on this path longer. I know better. Of course I should tell them, right? That'd be the rationalization. Good, good job. Yeah, some of these are subtle. Go ahead, Krishnadas.
So I pointed out when freaking out fragile, which is on high alert, and I related this with that part of share their opinion in every issue, because so he keeps the alert on every issue what happened for put himself inside and make himself right.
Okay, so if part of the image, that this very fragile image that this person is trying to protect, right, is that I'm really smart. So then, what are they going to do? Every time they have to say something, right? Sometimes in class, there's people who raise their hand, who every class have to say something. Can you see how they're protecting their Ahankara? Their image of trying to be so smart? But really underneath that, this is the sad part, they actually have probably been made to feel incredibly stupid as a child. And so it's a very deep childhood samskara of inferiority. So they're trying to look superior by having a comment on everything and acting like they know everything, That's actually where it's coming from. It's the opposite. Because people who really know a lot, they don't have to say it. Why do you have to say it? If you're confident in yourself, you don't have to say it. So good, very good, Krishnadas. Good job. Anyone else? Yes.
So I see that this act's defensive, if challenged, corresponds to denial and attacking from freaking out fragile.
Okay, gets defensive challenge, and then here you said for the freaking out fragile, it's denial.
It's denial and attacking.
And attacking. So tell me about both of those. Why is it denial?
But how you... the defense usually takes the form of denying something, I'm not wrong, I can't be wrong, and pointing out that not you are wrong, you're bad in something.
Okay. And do you think it also could be something related to being defensive about the feelings? In the example I was giving, it was about being defensive that I don't feel angry, I don't feel upset, everything's all right in my world, I'm so happy. Could you see how maybe it could be defensive in a more subtle way of being denial? The denial about feelings could make a person defensive if attacked. Can you imagine how that would play out?
I think probably no. It's much more superficially. Just they feel the threat to their position and they start to defense. Just this is also on alert that we pointed out already. That they're always on alert in order not to discover some their flaws that can be seen. Okay,
but defensive is a behavior, right? You start denial is like also a if you're in denial of something, right, and you're defending something, there's a feeling underlying that, and usually if somebody's telling you something, usually you feel angry if it's not right. Like, oftentimes you're not defending out of happiness. If you're happy and you're just kind of situated in yourself, you don't need to like defend and deny. So usually there's a feeling, but it's more subtle, that makes you deny and makes you defend, you know? Okay, and attacking?
Both. For me, this denying and attacking, these are two forms of defensive behavior.
Defensive sounds, yep. Good. Very good. Okay. Anything else in these characteristics for our know-it-all type? Look at the fragile ones again. You see anything else? So far, what ones have people shared? We've shared denial, from the freaking out fragile, denial, attacking, on high alert, distorted self-view, someone said, right? I think distorted self-view. So what's left? Did you see any highly sensitive? You said it? Or no, did somebody say it, I mean? Okay, go ahead, Janova. Why is this guy, this Noto, highly sensitive?
Because he thinks that he knows it all, and someone contradicts him, he will really be in defensive. He will be like, oh, no, this is not, no, I really know it all. This is not possible that I know that, you know. So, can you show the slide again? So yeah, he will be very sensitive if someone tells you, no, but you're wrong, actually, that happened.
Yeah.
He will be, oh no.
Yeah.
So he will be very defensive.
Very, very sensitive. And then he'll do all these behaviors, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, ready to go to 3, or is there anybody else? We've thoroughly exhausted difficult type 2. Okay, difficult type 3, the aggressive type. Have you ever dealt with somebody like this? They're very demanding. They tend to be abusive, actually. Sometimes they can be physically abusive, especially if you're a child and they're an adult. They can be verbally abusive if you're both adults. Emotionally abusive, which is the worst. It's actually the most painful because you don't even realize they're doing it half the time, you know? And then sometimes you believe it, which is also sad. You believe what they're saying about yourself. The aggressive type also criticizes others, accuses others, needs to prove that they're right, and they lack the patience with the others. They bully and intimidate. So what do you think about this? What characteristics from our friend the Ahankara are playing out with difficult person type 3? What do you think? The aggressive type.
Insensitive?
Insensitive. In what way? What makes them insensitive, do you think, out of these characteristics?
Insensitive because they just want to bully others and intimidate, so obviously they cannot be sensitive because then they couldn't do it.
Right. Very good. Because what's missing is the empathy, right, for the aggressive type? Right? The sensitivity comes in the empathy, like, oh, that's a child. How could I do that to a little boy who's scared, you know? Good. Very good. Very good. Anyone else? Difficult person type 3, aggressive. So they're insensitive, right? They're lacking the empathy. What else, Naruto?
So this person's Ahankara thinks himself to be special and unique, and that's why he or she considers that he or she has the right to accuse, criticize others, and also has the feeling or need to prove that he or she is right, probably because previously this person wasn't validated enough and wasn't recognized for his or her personality or efforts, and that's why now it's the time to take revenge.
On some probably weaker person, right? Very good. Good analysis. What else? Okay. Criticizing others.
Criticizing others is
Yep.
just simple, direct correspondence.
Yep.
Obvious.
Yeah. Putting them down, making them feel, put them up and make them feel superior and unique, right? What do you think this lacks patience with others is about? How does that have to do with Ahankara? Lacking patience with others. Vilas?
I recognize this as being proud, right? That, oh my God, I have to waste my time now with these low-class people here, and you know. So this kind of, you know, vritti could be behind it, and yeah, and also this lack of empathy, no?
Lack of empathy, yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, if patience could mean that someone is not, you know, not good yet at something, for example, and then
right.
I'm very impatient. Why is he still, you know? So this means I can't put myself into the other person's shoes.
Yes.
And seeing that, okay, the other person makes some effort, is struggling, or has, you know, some other constraints or circumstances that, you know, make the person, you know, be slow or be whatever it is, right? And that's why I get impatient.
Very good. Yeah. Lacking the empathy. Vladimir, were you going to say something in Bart?
I was just thinking, because they are competitive, they cannot be patient. Because in competition, or when you compete with someone, you need someone who has your level, and it goes up and up and up, and you have to be quick, and you have to be smart, and you have to follow, and it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Very Rajasic.
Yeah.
So if you cannot be like this with them as competitive, or if you cannot nourish, they cannot stand it. There's no enjoyment for them, I guess.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very good. What else? You want to?
The lacking patience to me is lacking awareness, because probably at some point the person who lacks patience forgets that they once too were like that, and they don't want to remember that they were inferior like that, so they want to protect their superiority. So their patience is actually an indication of, you know, their feeling inferior.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, that's something that they would have covered with shame, you know. That would be something, Bart, that would be shameful for them. So because they never had a parent probably be loving and nurturing to them in that area of their life, you know. So they want to shove it down. So then they can't slow down and be patient for someone else who's struggling in some way. Right. Very good. Malati, were you going to say something?
He's also on high alert because he's not able to hear anybody else who may have another opinion. That's why he's so quick and impatient to bully the other with his own opinion and completely oversensitive to his own, like any little criticism, so he's not able to take it. Therefore, he has to always be on the, you know, attacking and criticizing and being right and not giving others any space to express themselves.
Yes, very good. Yep, like steamrolling the person, right? Very good. Vilas? Okay, Bhushan.
Haribol, so I feel that this lacks patience with others could also be because of perceiving of being one special and unique, because it feels like, okay, the other person is not following instructions quickly. It's a disrespect to me, because I cannot see how special, unique and important I am. And that leads to anger.
Good. Very good. Good job, Bhushan. Thank you. Anyone else you want to share? Any other analysis of okay, Krishnadas?
Yeah, maybe about hates, because in the other like personalities, hate was not like central, but here hate is really like the action.
Right, you can
the
feel
impelling,
it. Yeah, bullying. I mean, how do you have to feel about a person to bully them? You know, you must very much hate them. You know, probably because they're triggering something in you that you're trying to not look at about yourself. Right? Good. That's a good point. Hate. Yeah, to be physically abusive to someone or verbally or emotionally abusive, you know? Yeah, very good. Okay, how about type 4, passive? Now this is an interesting one. Why is a passive person difficult For most of us, that would be, if you're like the more assertive type, you're like, yes, I love the passive ones, But they're a difficult type because they never offer any ideas. They don't talk that much. They're confused about, what they need or where they stand or how they feel. They shy away from participating in things. They remain very quiet. They hesitate to share anything personal. They're not assertive. And they seem detached, aloof from others, maybe even depressed. But why is this a difficult person? Can anyone see? Yes, Bharata.
Just what comes to me is that they're special and unique, and so then maybe all of these behaviors are just a way to show how sensitive they are and how caring they are, but in fact they're not comfortable with their feelings, and so they act in these ways.
Okay. So you picked the characteristic of special and unique, did you say? Special and unique, okay. They're special and unique, and so that's difficult because?
So we're looking at freaking out fragile to correlate?
So special and unique, and then why is that's the characteristic, and why is that difficult related to any of these things? I mean, what's specific about that? So the special and unique makes them, for example, shy away from participating in conversations, or?
Yeah, and it makes them do all of these things because they want to kind of create this aura of I'm not affected by things, whereas they are completely affected by it, and so then they shut down and behave in these 8 ways, 9 ways.
These aloof and disconnected ways. Okay, interesting. Okay, good. Kamala, we're all being psychologists tonight, analyzing all these personality types, right?
I don't know, maybe, but what it comes to me is like the person is highly sensitive and vulnerable and fragile, let's say.
Okay.
And the way to be feeling more comfortable is just to disconnect and be with her or himself and just shut down.
Do you think that they have a good awareness of how they affect other people, the passive type? No.
No.
That's why they're difficult, right? They're in tamas. They're just shut down. They're, so they're not realizing that their participation is important. Their ideas are important. Because what happens if you don't participate? Just say you're in a relationship and you don't do these, you do all of these things. Then what percentage of the relationship is your partner's job? 100%. Where do you want to eat? I don't know. Okay, so I have to decide? Then you bring them. What do you think they're going to say when you bring them to the restaurant? I don't really like this. Oh, okay. So then it's you have to take on all the responsibility, and they're like a victim or like a child. And at first it can be attractive because you're like, wow, they listen to me talk, and I think they like my ideas pretty much for the most part because they don't push back, they don't share their ideas, they don't say no. This is great. No, it's not great because they actually do have ideas and they do have thoughts. They're just not sharing them, and they're not asserting. So they end up blaming you. That's how it goes. Down the line eventually. Okay, Krishnadas.
I just have to say it was probably the most difficult person for me to lead, and there is one characteristic that I really like here in Freaking Out Fragile, which is denial, because they're denial of themselves.
Yeah.
So with whom you will have relationship there? They themselves do not exist.
Yeah. So this one seems not so difficult. They're the one who's like agreeable and they just go with the flow, you think. But actually when you get into it, it's not. And then you can't read them, and if you're trying to please them, which is what you'd want to do in a nice relationship, they please you and you please them, but you don't know what pleases them, because they just agree to everything, and then later on you find out 3 months later that they didn't like that, and you're like, what? You didn't like that? Or 5 years later, you're like, what? So who have I been having a relationship with? A ghost, right? So you're right, this is a difficult one, but it's not obviously difficult, But if you had a parent like this, then it's difficult to be in an adult relationship with like this, because if you have a parent like this, then that means that they're aloof and they didn't validate your feelings and they didn't validate you and maybe your nature and what you're good at and what your interests were. So then in an adult relationship, it's very painful to be, more painful to be with someone like this, because it makes you feel those same bad feelings about yourself, that you're not important and that you're not worthy of love and that nothing you say or do is interesting, Yeah. So this is the passive type. Anyone want to share anything else, Ujjaya?
I would say, I think it is their identity. They are lost for their identity, basically. Their identity is very much minimized.
That's right. That's,
because of that tamas guna.
That's right. That's good, and that's true. So Ahankara, we're saying like, no, we don't want to have a big Ahankara. That's our goal, not to have some big Ahankara with these problems, right? But our goal is also not to have a Ahankara that's this big and minimized, because you end up like this person, kind of depressed and low Ahankara. We don't want that either, because Ahankara gives us the agency to act. We just have to know, okay, yes, I want a strong Ahankara, but then we have to know which way to direct it, which way you want to act with that, So we're looking at someone who has a deflated, weak Ahankara, Thank you, Purushottam. That's a good insight. Okay, Jai.
I thought, did Kamala say insensitive or?
What did you say,
Did
Kamala?
you say Kamala insensitive? Or not? I want to say.
Yes,
I
you say it.
what she was saying. I thought, yeah. So yes, insensitive, because a person like that will be very much only concerned about themselves, their own problems, so they cannot feel for other people.
Exactly.
And also, why it is difficult, because they ask for a lot of attention.
That's right.
So we need to always ask, is it okay? Are you all right? And we don't really get some response from them, so that is why it is difficult.
It's difficult, that's right. And it takes a lot of energy, because you're caretaking their feelings. You feel like almost like a mother or a father. You're like, are you okay? Did I do it wrong? Did I do it right? Do you like it or not? Or is this good? And they're like, yeah. Everything's good. And you're like, okay, everything's good, So, yes, Narottam. Good, Jaya, thank you.
Well, I recognize here also distorted self-view. So the person doesn't really have a strong identity and a low self-esteem. That's why this person doesn't dare to offer ideas, thinking that they would be considered as improper or probably not good enough. And also that's why this person doesn't talk very much, because of being too shy, but it's excessively shy. And also regarding confused about where she stands. So the person is not capable to introspect properly.
That's right.
And also understand what are his or her good qualities that the person definitely has, and then some virtues. And this person is incapable to evaluate them and also to use them properly.
Very good, Narottam. Okay, Vilas? Okay. Bhadra?
Yes, Haribol.
Haribol.
Haribol, everyone. Haribol, Joshika.
Haribol.
I was thinking about the part that is never offer ideas, doesn't talk very much, or shies away from participating in conversations. In my experience, is also like kind of being proud, because this person is so afraid to take the risk to failure, to have a failure or something.
Interesting.
That prefers the security of being enclosed in him or herself. I think.
Okay. And that's what you say is proud because they're afraid to take the risk? That's what makes them proud? Or?
Yeah, like proud because they prefer like how do I say, like being attached to their own way of thinking or their opinion, and not taking the risk to acknowledge that maybe they are wrong or it's something that they can change or something like that, which implies humility, no?
Right, good. That's true. Yep, good. That's a subtle insight. That's good. Good, Bhadra. Okay, Bhushan, and then we'll wrap up.
Maybe I would use the word rationalize also, because it's connected to denial, and also what Bhadra is trying to rationalize especially in a spiritual setting where you can easily rationalize it as humility or some kind of a saintly detachment or something, and then you feel proud of.
Yeah, that's true. You can rationalize and say, no, I'm just very humble. That's why I agree to everything. Just see how humble I am. That's good, Bhushan. It's true, right? Yeah, that's true. Okay, good job, you guys. So what I'll do is next week when we start, I'll start with questions, because I didn't get time to answer Alex's question, and there'll probably be some others that come up over the week. But wonderful analysis. I hope you got some little nuggets out of that. All right, Haribol, Haribol, thank you.